What's up, guys? Today's video I'm going to tell you how to get the most out of your Egyptian wheat that you plant this spring/summer. There's step-by-step instructions that you need to follow, basically no matter what it is that you plant. But to get the most out of your Egyptian wheat, and I'm a huge advocate of Egyptian wheat. I plant Egyptian wheat every year for screening, dividing food plots. One thing that I don't recommend it for is for bedding, because Egyptian wheat is an annual, so it's had to be replanted every year. There's no point in planting an annual screen bedding area, have it fall down at the end of the year, and then the deer, you can't establish a bedding area with Egyptian wheat. I see people trying to do this and recommending it, which doesn't make sense to me, because it's only going to be temporary. It's going to be too thick. Deer's not going to really want to bed in it anyway. So this video is strictly for screening, dividing food plots, and how to plant it step by step. So what I usually do, and if you guys have been following the channel for the past several years, I grow very good Egyptian wheat, and I'll play a bunch of B-roll footage over it and explain it. It's pretty simple, but explain it on how you guys can get the most out of it. So what you want to do is, I know it's a boring topic and people are sick of hearing about it, but you have to get a soil sample. I still see people skipping this step, and I don't understand why. But you have to get a soil sample, and when you plant Egyptian wheat, it's critical. It's critical with anything you plant, but to get the most out of your Egyptian wheat, to get the most out of anything, you have to do that soil sample. What that soil sample is going to tell you is where your pH is at and where your fertility levels are. When you get that soil sample and you find the area that makes sense to plant your Egyptian wheat, is you're going to want to lime it and fertilize it according to soil sample. You can lime it anytime you want. I would not recommend planting Egyptian wheat, I would not recommend fertilizing until you plant your Egyptian wheat. So don't spread your lime out, and your fertilizer together, and then wait 2 months and then fertilize, or then plant. What you want to do is get your lime down ASAP, anytime you want to. Get it down there, let it start working on that soil, adjust the pH. Then when it's planting time, wherever you're at in the country, you're going to want to wait till the temperatures get warmer. Right now, it's a little bit too cold to be planting it where I'm at here in the Northeast. In Maryland, PA, it's too cold. We usually plant the end of May, first week of June, where the temps are in the 70s, 75s, the soil temps are above 55, 60. That's when 65, that's going to be when you want to plant Egyptian wheat. Egyptian wheat loves heat, has a maturity rate of about 100, 120 days, depending on what specific variety that you're using. So you're liming according to soil sample, you're waiting till the temperatures are right, soil temperatures are good that time of year, then you're going to want to plant your Egyptian wheat and fertilize at the same time. Most times that you're going to be planting this is going to recommend a high nitrogen and high potassium, and we'll get into that later on. So when you get your seed down, you want to cover it up lightly, follow the instructions on whatever brand, your company that you're using. We're using Incognito this year again, and I'll show a bunch of B-roll footage over it to show you what it looks like and how well it grows. So what I do is, at planting, I follow that soil sample. Whatever it says, I follow that to the T. 30 days later, when those plants are about a foot tall, I wait till the plants are dry. I come back in and I fertilize with a triple 19 at 30 to 45 day mark. I let that rip. I use about 50 pounds for about a half acre. 50-pound bag, I spread it on. If you have a half acre Egyptian wheat, I use about 50 pounds of it. It's not a lot, but that's what you want, 50 pounds. Then what you're going to want to do is, hopefully you can time this perfectly to where you're spreading that triple 19 when the plants are dry, and you get a rain right after, within a day or two. It's going to help tremendously, because your nitrogen, you don't want your nitrogen to evaporate. Then you're going to let it go. You're going to come back in and keep an eye on it around the 60 to 90 day mark. And if you feel like it needs more, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to hit it with triple 19 again, one more time. 50, same thing, same method, 50 pounds for a half acre, let that rip, 100 pounds an acre. And that's going to give it a huge boost. And at that same time, what I'm usually doing is I'm spraying the Egyptian wheat with micronutrients, because micronutrients are the most lacking nutrients in the soil. And because you're not putting them back in, you know, people are highly using chemicals, and they're not, you know, building up organic matter and green manure back into that soil to allow those plants to decompose, to release those micronutrients back into the soil. So micronutrients are very, very limited in the soil. So plants need these, right? We can't live without micronutrients. Humans can't, and plants can't. And if you were to do a soil test and ask for a micronutrient test as well, it's going to show you that they're extremely, extremely low in the soil, which is very bad for plant health. So we're hitting that with micronutrients, whether we're hitting it with, you know, granular, which they make a granular fertilizer that has a small, minute percentage of micronutrients in it. There's a couple brands out there. I think it's one of them's called Rainbow. I can't remember all the brand names, but if you go to your local, you know, fertilizer shop and just say, hey, I want a triple 19 or a triple 13 that has micronutrients in it, you can hit it with that as well, perfectly fine. So that's my method of doing it that way. And typically it's going to mature here within about 100, 120, 130 days. And by this time, at the 100-day mark, you should be well around 7, 8, 9 feet tall. And sometimes in this, if you do this method, you might get 10 feet tall. It just depends on the amount of nutrients that's in that soil. And back to the nitrogen, potassium. Potassium is what builds stalk strength. Nitrogen gives it that boost of growth, but potassium really has to be in there to build stalk strength. And the reason you want stalk strength is Egyptian wheat will fall over when you get heavy snows, you know, deep into the winter months, but you don't want it to fall over with the first snowfall. You know, you want it to withstand itself. And the key with that is the nutrient availability in the soil, following this protocol with the 30 days triple 19, another 30 days triple 19, and the micronutrients. And that's going to build the best Egyptian wheat, the strongest Egyptian wheat stalks that it can possibly have with the root system, the stalk strength on it. And that way, when you get winds and heavy snows, it doesn't flop over, because you don't want that to happen until after the deer season. Now, there's people out there that hate Egyptian wheat and say, well, it's junk, you know, it falls right over. Well, that's because you're not following the proper steps to do it. When you do something half-assed, you'll get half-assed results. Pardon my language. But it just irritates me when somebody says that something is junk when they don't follow the proper steps to do something the proper way, which I probably wouldn't want to see what other stuff they do in life. But anyway, that's with anything. You have to follow the proper steps. When you follow the proper steps, you get the best results, no matter what it is. Whether you're planting, you know, brassicas or buckwheat, there's steps to follow. When you're planting switchgrass, there's steps to follow. When you're planting Egyptian wheat, there's steps to follow. And when you do those steps, you'll have the best results. Now, some cases where you'll use Egyptian wheat is, again, I don't use it for bedding. It's silly. Number two is I divide food plots. So if you have a very large food plot, you can divide those food plots to have separate deer in those food plots where the deer can't see each other, which creates less stress, which is going to, in turn, attract more deer to your food plot. Bucks, does, whatever. It's going to attract those to the food plot because there's less stress in that area. Another thing I use it for is to screen access. So if I need to walk around a field to get to the backside of, say, a food plot, tree stand, whatever, then I'm screening that field off so I can zip by there. Deer can't see me, I can't see them. They most times can't hear you. If it's thick enough, you can get by there and deer can't see you to allow you to slip by. Those are the instances where I use it. Another tip with this is when you're planting rows, walls, is you want to keep them about 10 to 15 feet wide, to where it's wide enough to where you can't see through it, deer can't see through it, and it's wide enough to where it holds itself together. That's very important. And another tip with this is Do not overseed too much, because if you overseed it with too many pounds per acre, it will shunt itself. No matter how much fertilizer, no matter how much micronutrients you give it, it will shunt itself, and you'll have short Egyptian wheat. Another important part of this is weed control. If you have too many weeds coming up through there, it's going to shunt itself. So it's important to follow the proper steps with this to get the most out of your Egyptian wheat. If you guys have any questions about Egyptian wheat, I'm pretty familiar with this stuff. I plant it every year, experiment different ways. But if you have any questions planting it this year, comment down below. I'll help you guys out, as I always do. Try my best to answer all your questions. Leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Really much appreciated if you guys do. And see you in the next video.